Welcome to another edition of the Newport This Week video podcast series. I'm Bill Bartholomew. Remember, you can find each and every episode of this series at newportthisweek.com and on the Newport This Week YouTube channel. Today, we have what I would describe as a really important conversation. I think, a lot of the topics that we cover impact many people's lives. In this case, it arguably impacts in one way, shape, or form everybody's life. It is Hospice Volunteer Month. And that's a perfect time for us to talk about, one, hospice care, but also visiting nurse year-round initiatives as a whole, and particularly here in Newport County. We've got a couple of guests. I'll have each of them introduce themselves to you, the listeners, and we'll start with Joy.
Hi, I'm Joy Benson, and I'm the Hospice Volunteer Coordinator. I should say, though, that we also have some volunteers who are not hospice volunteers, and they are office volunteers, so I don't want to leave them out.
Takes a team to make anything important happen, that's for sure. And Betty, if you'd introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Betty Karras. I am the Chief Advancement Officer here at Visiting Nurse Home and Hospice from our new location, very new location here in Middletown.
All right. Well, thank you both so much for your time this morning. So, we could kind of go a lot of different directions here. I think that people would be interested in why you each got into this work to begin. I alluded in the open that this is something that in many ways impacts most people's lives. It's sort of, there's an inevitability, but there's also just an experiential thing that many of us, whether it's our families, friends, that enter into hospice or enter into a need for visiting nurses as a whole. So I guess let's start with Joy. Why did you get into this work as volunteer coordinator?
Well, I retired from the Portsmouth School Department, but during that time I had been there, I'd taken an 8-year hiatus and worked at Rhode Island Hospital for the pediatric oncology program. So I was well versed in end-of-life issues. And when I saw this come up as a part-time job, I applied and I got the job. And I love the work. I love hospice. It's just so important, and everybody should know about it, no matter where they are in life.
Well said. Betty, same question to you. How did you get involved in this line of work?
Sure. I've been in healthcare for and the defense industry for a long time, mostly healthcare. And this organization is just we're here 75 years on the island. I love working with nonprofits, so this was a great match for me, and to really promote something I firmly believe in, which is the hospice benefit that we're all entitled to. And Joy really has such a passion for it, and really spreads it's really a gospel almost of really having a good end of your life and the end of life that you choose.
Very empowering, no doubt about it. I just watched the film Newport in This Together, which documented Newport's experience during COVID and really everything that happened in 2020. And I do wonder the impact that any visiting nurse practice experienced, and particularly hospice during COVID-19. It's obviously something most people don't want to rehash, but I wonder from each of your experience with that film kind of being a buzzy topic right now, and a lot of people having seen it in the community, starting with Joy, your experience during COVID and sort of as we've moved away from that mindset, what have you learned from it and what has changed dramatically or even in a minor sense that people might not think of?
Well, what I've experienced is it was kind of gradual. The lessening of hours for staff, that was gradual, but our nurses and some of our therapists, they went out anyway. I can remember going into the office during COVID when no one was on the street, could hardly shop, pulling into the parking lot, and the parking lot was full, and I was just so impressed. My hours were cut back to like 3 a week. The other thing that really impressed me is my volunteers. I have about 32 hospice volunteers. And the volunteers that had patients when COVID started, they stayed with those patients as long as they possibly could. So most of the volunteers are older, and what finally led them to leave seeing their patient was their adult children said, it's not safe for you, so they left. The other thing that was very impressive is as soon as volunteers could start seeing patients again, they were right there and they went right back to see patients. It was really amazing.
The human spirit persevered in so many incredible ways during that time. Ambulatory services, in some cases, we learned how important brick and mortar facilities really are in communities. We also learned how important visiting nurse practices and ambulatory services are, meeting people where they need to be met in a given moment, particularly an end of life situation. Betty, your take on, here we are now, 2024. It's been over 4 years since the fateful introduction of COVID into Rhode Island. What did you experience, and what are the big changes that took place in the wake of COVID?
Well, I started in June of 2020 at visiting nurse. So it took a while for me to know what people looked like because we were all so heavily masked up. But what shocked me, honestly, having gone home from another job and we were working from home, was that this place never stopped. I mean, they never closed their doors, not one day. I think in our entire history, even in the blizzard of 78, right? We did not close our doors. And so our people were out there before vaccinations, before there was readily available PPE. We were out there, and when they talked about people getting better at home, they were getting better at home with us. And it really showed, I think, how important this service is to each community. For us, the ambulatory surgeries kind of dried up on one end, so there was not that regular business. But then, of course, the pandemic brought so many more patients to us. But we have an amazing staff, really, really brave, who took did not never blinked and really kept it going throughout.
Mm. So important to highlight that. There's an excellent piece in Newport this week in the print and digital edition by Colleen McGrath that highlights Judy and David Howard, who are each volunteers on the hospice side. And there's a lot of answers to the very same question I'm about to ask, or questions I'm about to ask. But I wonder, just for our audience here, Joy, what goes into being a hospice volunteer?
Well, hospice volunteers usually see one patient at a time. They go for 2 hours a week. That's the minimum. If they'd like to go more, they're certainly welcome to, but we don't want to promise patients more than that. They have extensive training. We have a 5-week training, usually on the Thursday morning from 9 until 12:30. And they have to have they have to meet all the same criteria that our medical staff do, because they go into homes. So they have to have background checks. They have to have complete physicals and be signed. They have to sign off. The doctor has to sign off for them. They fill out questionnaires. We have the training. They have quizzes about all the training, things like bloodborne pathogens, HIPAA, all kinds of things like that. So they're very well trained, and they usually go out. Our most important need from hospice families are some time to get out. So many of our volunteers will provide respite for a couple of hours a week so the caregivers can shop, they can do different errands, they can get a haircut, maybe just take a walk, or maybe even stay in the house, but not have to, stay right with the patient. And the other thing is companionship for patients. We have a lot of patients whose families have heard the same stories over and over again, and it's very nice for our volunteers to go in, listen to those stories, and give a caregiver a break again. And sometimes they get very close, and sometimes our patients don't interact a lot, so they're not able to get close. But it serves a great need for families.
It's such thankless work. Betty, how do people get involved if they'd like to become a volunteer themselves?
Well, they can call us right here, and we'll put them in touch with Joy, who will get the process started. They have to have, as Joy said, the background checks, etc. But really a heart for this. I mean, to really want to go into someone's home where someone is spending some of the last, weeks of their life, or months of their life, and it's really vital that we have that strong volunteer corps that Joy's built for us. So they can give us a call here at 682-2100, and we'll happily connect them over to Joy. and let them know how to get that started.
682-2100, was that it?
Yes, 682-2100.
All right,
Yes.
my memory is intact. I like that. 682-2100. Joy, Betty, thank you so much for your time. And again, that number, if you're interested as a listener in becoming a volunteer, it's thankless work, it's essential work. And I think it's worth noting that COVID experience because we really found out the dedication of certain aspects of our community, including each of you. And it is not something that's gone unnoticed. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Bill.